Hello everyone, welcome to this YouTube video. My name is Harper. I am disabled in many ways, but today we're particularly talking about autism, which is sort of the primary disability that I identify with. We are talking about autism because we are going to be looking at a Jubilee video. So Jubilee is a channel on YouTube. It's pretty popular. You've probably heard of it. If you haven't, they make a lot of content relating to identity and shared experience, and they have one series called Spectrum, which feels particularly perfect for an episode about autism. But on this show, they bring together people with a shared identity or shared experience, and then they have them react to a series of statements, questions about that identity or experience that they share. And so the episode we're going to be looking at is called Do All Autistic People Think the Same? Which, spoiler alert, no. No one in these episodes ever thinks entirely the same, but it is interesting to get a look at some of the differences, some of the things you might expect, might not expect, and as an autistic person, I feel qualified to speak to what these other autistic people are saying about their experiences. And of course, everyone is entitled to their own experience and everyone's experience is valid, but I also just wanna, share some of mine. So this video actually came out in March of 2020 before the coronavirus, and I actually watched it then when it came out, but I haven't watched it since and I don't remember anything that happened in it. So this is basically a fresh reaction, but if I start remembering things, we're just gonna ignore that. 7 people with autism.
My name's Jay. I'm 19. I was diagnosed late with autism. There's no way to look autistic. It's just a whole spectrum of people.
I'm Josiah. I'm 18. At first, I was really unsure about it because it sounded like it was bad, but I started to realize that autism is more like me than it is a disease.
Yeah.
My name is Shayna Crashen. I'm 23.
So
Autism is more prevalent than people think, and just if we can make the world more aware and acceptable towards it, it'll just be a lot easier for everybody.
Yeah,
I am Christopher Carroll. I am 38 years old. I like to act. Is that not related to autism?
No, everything's related to
I'm
autism.
Yoni, I'm 19, and I am an artist of all types. I really am proud to have autism. It makes me see the world differently, and that's totally awesome.
My name is Joseph.
Oh my god,
Just because I communicate different doesn't.
I forgot there was an AAC user in this. That's so great. I feel like we haven't met everyone yet, but I feel like we're actually doing pretty well on the diversity front, and that is what you want to see. Okay.
Mean I do not understand.
My name is Bella. I'm 22 years old. In high school, I couldn't really talk, so I was like nonverbal. I've just become more confident in myself and being able to talk to other people.
I consider the term special offensive.
Hot topic.
I do find it to be somewhat of a bad label. Like when I perform in the performances I've been in, people begin to whisper in the audience, whisper among themselves. Was that person special or not?
No.
And
Oh, I hate that so much because people use the word special and it's just a euphemism. Like, they don't want to say, like, is that person like something bad? But they're thinking it, like they're using special as a derogatory term, and they think it's palatable to call someone special, not to call them stupid or demented or like the R slur, but they can say special and they feel like they're giving a compliment somehow. I hate it.
When I think about special in the terms of autism, I think about special ed. And for me, it's like, why is it special to have some extra accommodations or to learn a different way? Like, it's not special ed, it's extra support ed.
Yeah, I completely agree with this point of like special ed, which I've started to shift and call specialized education. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's great to have accommodations and extra support and be in a learning environment in which people actually respect you and give you what you need and you can stand up for yourself and you can actually access your education. I think the problem is just that like putting that word special on it, just like what Jay said, like makes it to be other when that should just be the norm.
I have trouble making friends.
Strongly agree. Look at, they're with me. Okay.
It's hard for me to make friends because I am nonverbal.
Yeah, I didn't really start making friends until I started college because I wasn't like in a lot of activities and stuff. I just always wanted to be by myself, and I always found it hard to talk to people.
For the longest time, especially when I was in middle school, I had a bit of a hard time making friends, and so I was basically on my own for a while. But until I went to junior high, I went to a private school. Their whole entire goal was to basically like make a community that are just trying to find friends and stuff like that. So that's why I'm on the somewhat disagree, because it's like I have plenty of friends now, but in the long run, when it came down to middle school, I had a really rough time.
Yeah, I kind of, when I say strongly agree for myself, you might want to say, Harper, you have friends. Like, shouldn't you be kind of where this person is in the sense that, like, it used to be hard, but you have friends. But I think that for me, like, yes, I have friends, but you can still have a hard time making friends, even if you have friends. And, like, the friends I have today took a lot of energy and effort to create friendships with, and I still don't feel like I'm nailing this whole friendship thing. It's really challenging. Like, it's a minefield, and middle school, high school was really hard. Elementary school has always been hard. I've always managed to have friends because people sort of just picked me up, and I was able to mask so well that people would invite me to parties, and, you know, I would be at the lunch table and in the friend group, and I could get through the social situations, but I never felt like I had like a true friend that I could go to or trust or really like be myself with. And that's kind of heartbreaking, and some days I still feel like that, even though I know that I've grown and I do have people in my life. But it's just, there's always a question mark, and it's always a minefield.
I honestly don't have trouble making friends.
Good for
I
you.
talk to everyone I meet, and everyone I meet I kind of make friends with.
See, I think this is such an important thing, because here's the thing about autism, like, it's literally called a spectrum, and so this show is perfect to display that, because people always talk about, like, you know, eye contact, lack of empathy, things like, you know, having trouble making friends as autistic experiences. But the reality is that the exact opposite of all those things is also an autistic experience. Hyper empathy, always making eye contact, talking to everyone you meet. Like, these are, you know, parts of autism as well. And just because they're not the most commonly talked about part doesn't mean that they're not a part of autism or a part of an experience an autistic person could have. Also, I want to say, like, it's a spectrum in the sense that everyone has different experiences. Like, something might be an autistic trait that you just don't have, but you're still autistic. So maybe this person, you know, that's just not a part of the autism that they experience. And that's totally cool.
I also have social anxiety, so it's never been easy for me to make friends, but sometimes I just feel better being by myself and doing my own thing. And when you go out and you meet,
that's the hard thing. I feel like I keep interrupting them in the middle of them talking, but I don't want to forget the things I'm saying. I think one of the really hard things for me about being autistic, and I think this is what Jay is getting at, and I think also a lot of like introverted people and people with social anxiety experience this as well, like, you have to find someone who, like, spending time with them is somehow better than like spending time completely on your own. Like, I can handle being around people sometimes, and sometimes it's better than being alone, but I just love being by myself. I would love to get to a point where I can unmask around anyone and everyone, but I just don't think that's going to be possible, and I've kind of come to accept that in myself.
I have a similar problem. When I was younger, I had social phobia, and I spent a lot of childhood just living or playing inside my own head, which didn't exactly seem to help me with people skills.
I think that for me, it actually did help me with my people skills. I mean, everyone's experience is different, but the time I spent in my head as like a writer who was creating stories and creating these landscapes, like, I got to practice my social skills through characters and character interaction. So I think it actually helped me. I would be curious to know more So I guess I should play if I want to know more about what his inner world was like.
Yeah, it can trigger things. You can like trigger.
Oh, or not. I would love to hear Christopher. I'm so bad at names. I want to know more about your inner
Your
world.
meltdown like you don't want to have to deal with.
Sensory issues.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Period.
Yeah, I was just saying I feel, yeah.
Being diagnosed with autism.
Strongly agree. Strongly agree. I don't know how you could not strongly agree with that statement. Chris, I want to know what you have to say so bad.
Well, for years and years, I was wondering, like, why is the music in the car where no one else is saying it's loud? Why is
This
it
part's gonna
hurting
make me
me? Why is,
emotional.
like, why can't I make friends easily? Why am I not picking up on sarcasm? I feel like it really did help me understand myself because I stopped feeling so bad.
First read the, what do they call
The
it?
DSM.
It's not symptoms. Like
Criteria.
Traits, characteristics.
Criteria.
Yeah, the criteria for autism. It was like mind-blowing because it was like reading something that I didn't even know existed and could be put into words.
One time I wrote about this experience. One time I've written about this a million times in fiction and nonfiction. And one time in fiction I wrote that like it felt like he was reading an article that had been written by him because it was just so accurate. And that's how I felt when I first started really investigating like what autism actually was and what the actual characteristics were, not like the stereotypes. It just felt like someone was in my head writing everything down. I was like, it was so cool, like mind-blowing in the best way.
Like I said, I thought everybody was just dealing with it and hiding it better. And I've turned to so much more self-love since I've
See, I never thought that everyone else was hiding it better. I just thought I was the only one experiencing it. I thought I was completely alone, and so there was never going to be a word for it because I was the only one experiencing it, and I was just doomed to be alone and nameless my whole life.
Well, I think I have to say I somewhat disagree because I've not actually been diagnosed. No one's.
Oh, okay, this makes me sad. I gotta hear what he has to say, but when I hear this, it makes me think, buddy, you can go be on the other line. Like, if you are experiencing these joyous things of understanding yourself, and the only reason you're on that line is because you haven't actually gotten a diagnosis from like a professional, get over to the other line, because self-diagnosis is valid. If you know that you're autistic, you are autistic, and you can say that you've been diagnosed because self-diagnosis is diagnosis. But I do want to hear what he has to say. Chris? Is his name Chris? If his name is not Chris, I'm going to feel really bad.
Tested me for autism.
Christopher. Chris, we're just buddies. I'll be your friend.
So what do we go by? Just simply what a doctor happens to say on any given day? Or
What made you want to come today?
a few doctors have said I have autism. Although at least twice as many doctors I've known have said I do not.
What do you believe?
As
Or
of
do you just
now,
not care?
I believe I do have autism somewhere, but I can't say I agree with the diagnosis because I don't actually have a diagnosis.
Yeah, this is really sad because diagnosis is so hard to come by, especially the older you get. If I remember correctly, he said he was 38, and I mean, he's a white man, so you might think like, oh, he easily would have gotten a diagnosis when he was like 4 or 5, and if he walked into any clinic, they would just give him one. But people are really hesitant to diagnose ASD, especially once you get past like, you know, teenage years. Even in your teenage years, it can be really hard, and there's so many barriers to diagnosis, and it makes me really sad. And I know a lot of people that are in Christopher's position here of like, you know, have thought about autism and think that maybe they are, and have had doctors say yes, then have doctors say no, or maybe they haven't really gone to a doctor yet and they kind of have it in the back of their head, but they don't really do anything with it, or they don't feel like they can. Or maybe they actually can't. Like, there are plenty of reasons why someone is unable to see a professional, even if they really want to. It could be financial reasons, it could be reasons of discrimination, of, you know, a lack of resources, of a lack of, you know, family support. There are so many reasons why people are unable to seek out a diagnosis and even get themselves to a clinic or an evaluation site. And then you add on all the factors of discrimination and, racial bias and gender bias coming into the diagnostician's mind while they're doing the evaluation, the way the evaluations are created. So many barriers to diagnosis. Like I said, this is a whole topic, y'all. The long story short, it is completely valid to self-diagnose, in part because the diagnostic system is so broken and so discriminatory, but that doesn't mean that wanting a diagnosis is a problem or invalid, because we are allowed to want the diagnostic system to work for us, and we're allowed to want the validation of a professional and to want the resources that tend to come with professional diagnosis. But it is also totally valid to want those resources to detach from professional diagnosis, and completely okay to not feel like you need a professional diagnosis and to feel self-diagnosis is enough for you. That is completely valid. And it is also completely valid to not know, to question your identity as an autistic person, whether you are or aren't. It is completely okay to have questions. It is a journey. It is a process. Take your time, go through it. It will all work out in the end. If you get anything from these voice memos that I'm adding in post, it is that whatever your journey looks like, it is okay. It is yours, and that is enough.
It does really help. It really helps me to understand how my brain works and how I can get help. So.
And
when you understand how your brain works and what you need, you can get what you need. Like, it's so simple. It makes me so mad when parents are like, I don't want to put like a label on my child. Like, I don't want them to have to deal with that. You don't want them to have the tools and resources to understand themselves and seek out what they need to succeed. Like, you're just learning a piece of information about yourself. Knowledge is power. Like, use it, go for it. It's going to allow you to thrive. And I love it.
Me when people pity me.
Ooh.
3, 2, 1, go.
I'm either agree or strongly agree. I don't know why I'm wavering.
I grew up like really obsessively masking. I don't think people pity me. I think the opposite. I think people have very high expectations of me because I can kind of mask and present that I think that most people forget.
Sorry, this is why I waver. Because I agree with her so hard here. I don't actually get a lot of pity. People don't really see me as disabled. And so part of my whole life is like showing them that I'm disabled and not allowing them to see me as neurotypical, because otherwise, like, I mask a lot. I'm a fairly like high achieving person. That's just my personality. I succeed in a lot of conventional ways, and so people don't pity me because they don't have any reason to, because they don't see me for who I actually am. So if someone did pity me, I would be pissed about it. But there also might be just a little tiny bit of like, oh, so you're actually treating me like a disabled person. And it is so screwed up that being seen as a disabled person is going to equal a negative experience like pity. Like, how broken is our world? How broken is the system? The ableism is off the charts!
don't pity me, like be with me, be with me in the moment. Like, don't feel bad for me, like as if you can't do any, like treat me like I am just a normal person.
A person.
So like growing up, people used to like baby me.
Yeah.
And now like I look at being 22, I look back and it's like they just should have probably treated me like a normal child.
Infantilization. I could make a whole video about infantilization. Maybe I will. I swear to God. Oh, it's so bad.
In itself, people babying you, that can be another added knock that you don't,
Makes me feel like I can't be my own person.
Yeah.
I used to have that problem with a lot of people. Like, they would be like, oh, it's okay, we're all a little autistic or something like that.
Oh, sorry. That was visceral reaction. And that's the one. There's so many of these little, like, you don't look autistic, and like, like everyone's a little autistic, like these little phrases, casual ableist things that people say to autistic people that you absolutely should not say. This is the one that I get the most. Okay.
And it's like, no, I hate that comment so much, and I get it so many times.
I hate that comment too.
Yeah.
We're not all autistic just because you have like, you relate to like a couple of the things on the traits doesn't mean that you're autistic necessarily. You have to have
Exactly.
more than just 3 things, you know?
I would rather not have autism. 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, good. Whew. I was real scared there for like 2 seconds.
I strongly disagree because if I didn't have autism, I wouldn't be the same exact person.
Yes, Bella, go.
Part of my identity. Would I really be the same person if I didn't have autism?
Another thing is that the issues and the struggles that like I have with being somebody with autism is like that I encounter day to day mostly have to do with the fact that I'm living in a neurotypical world,
Yes.
not that I have autism, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, I agree with that, like 60% of the way, because I have some issues with the social model of disability, like this idea that, like, you know, it's not our impairments that give us issues, it's the ableist society that refuses to accommodate and be accessible, because that is like very much true. Like a lot of my issues would be like mitigated if we lived in a world in which people respected autism and tried to understand and learn and care and make things accessible. But there are a number of things that I struggle with as an autistic person that you cannot accommodate away. Like no matter how accessible you make something, no matter how sensory friendly you make something, like I will still have chronic pain, I will still have sensory processing issues, I will still like struggle with aspects of my autism. And that's just a reality. And you know, you can teach me how to read all you want. I'm still gonna be dyslexic and still gonna have moments every once in a while where that causes a problem. So yes, society needs to step the F up and like do better and like stop being so inaccessible and ableist. But also like I think we could all benefit from a basic understanding of the fact that like a blind person will still be blind even if there's Braille.
much rather live in a world that's more aware of autism or a less neurotypical heavy world. That would be what I would rather change, not changing myself.
No, and this is a really good point. Like if we're going to like use a magical force to change something, it should not be the autistic people. It should be the world.
I may have autism, but that makes me who I am, and I wouldn't change it if I had the choice.
Yes. Yes.
Preach,
Yes.
Joe, preach.
Preach, I feel that.
That's why I prefer diagnosis first language, like autistic person, than people with autism, because personally it's like my autism makes up me. It's not just like a part of me. My autism affects the way I see the world, the way I process, the way I feel things, the way I go about things and socialize. And even though I don't like everything about myself, I don't think that being...
But also like, who does? I think sometimes we have this idea that like autistic people have to like either completely love themselves or completely hate themselves. But like no one is all the way over on either one of those camps. Like it's just life.
Not autistic would make me love myself suddenly. I think it's just about the fact that I just need to work on accepting myself.
I feel like I hate myself if I was neurotypical. I don't want to be neurotypical, like no offense, but like I love being autistic. I love like the parts of me that are autistic, and to Jay's point, like the parts of me that are autistic are just me. Like there is not like the neurotypical Harper that is affected by the autistic Harper. Like I am autistic. End of sentence. It is who I am. If you love me, you love an autistic person. If you see me, you see an autistic person. There is no getting around that fact. And so to cure me, to take my autism away would be to take me away. And I don't want to lose myself because my autism is myself, and it's not a tragedy. It's not something to cure. It's a part of my identity, and every identity is going to have like ups and downs and challenges. And to my god, Shanna, I don't remember her name, I'm so bad at names, but to her point, you know, just because like there might be some negative things, doesn't mean that those negative things can't be negated by making our society more accessible. Because yeah, I'm always going to experience like little bouts of sensory overload or like negative sensory reactions to things, but I don't experience sensory overload as much as I used to, because now not only have I learned tools and skills like we were talking about in the last question, but I also have learned to avoid places that are going to be inaccessible, and I have learned to advocate for myself to, you know, have sensory friendly experiences. And, you know, it would be nice to, you know, have more sensory friendly, you know, concert venues and restaurants, so I could go out and like live in the world a little bit more. But at the end of the day, like, I have mitigated a lot of the negative stuff because I have the word autism, and I have the community, and I have the empowerment to fight to make things better for myself and for the community at large.
I feel connected to other people on the spectrum.
I love this one, and I think there's two ways to interpret it. Number one, I think it's just like the general vibe of like, you know, feeling like we're all a part of something together, and that like we are all in this together, which like absolutely I would hope that like all of us could feel that sort of connection of like we are all united, like even if we don't know each other and we don't have like friends in the community, like we're all like we're in this together, we're connected. And then there's that other way of like having friends within the community, and being connected like socially into the autistic community. I definitely feel like I've always felt the first one, because I think that's just like innate to how autism works and how I see autism, but I definitely didn't necessarily feel the second one until I started actively making connections, and also started seeing other people in my life who I'd been connected with start to realize that they were autistic. But now, like, yes, I would say strongly agree on both of these fronts. Like, I have so many autistic friends, and it's really beautiful.
Do you agree? It's like, although we have different stories about how of autism, I believe that we where we can relate to each other and still like
Have different perspectives.
yeah, exactly, because it's like I feel like, and especially right now, it's like we spread apart because, you know, we're scared to say that we're autistic. But I believe that we need to start to group together and start to educate people, and, you know.
I've noticed a rise in communities online
Yeah.
for autism.
Yeah, we gotta band together. So much good that can come from when our community connects, and seeing autistic people come together for their own sake, and then that ripples out into making the world better, is one of the most beautiful things that I can imagine. And if you are autistic watching this, please feel empowered to connect with the community and find your people within it, and, you know, work together to have a shared space, and that shared space will in turn make the world better. I promise you. Even if you're not like doing advocacy work, like please do it if you feel called to do it. But if you don't, even just existing as an autistic person who does so by like without shame, like shamelessly be autistic and you will make the world better. Shamelessly be autistic in an autistic space and the world will be better for it. You have that power, and I really, really hope that you use it. I know it can be really hard, but you have it within you, and I believe in you.
All right, guys, that's a wrap.
Woo!
Okay, you want to all put our hands in? Like, autism.
Autism!
Right, ready? Oh my gosh. Wait, are we actually going to do
They're all
this?
like, wait, should we touch each other? Is this weird? What do we do? Moon. That was so much fun. I really wanted to just make this video because I wanted to watch this Jubilee video again, and I'm really glad that I did. I will leave the link to the original video in the description if you want to go rewatch it or want to go check out any of the people in the video. I'm pretty sure they'll be linked in that description, so you can check that out, and you know, you can subscribe to Jubilee if you want, but really you should subscribe to me. You can also like the video, comment below, let me know your thoughts about any of these topics, or if there's other autism related topics you want me to talk about or expand upon. I know there were a couple I mentioned in this video of like, I could make a whole video about that, so Maybe I will. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. That's it from me. I'm gonna go. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care of yourself. Take care of those around you. Sending all the best vibes, and I will see you next time.